Today I'm showing you how to make the most delicious fluffy sourdough cinnamon rolls. It's winter here and it feels like it's never ending, and I'm constantly looking to get new comfort food recipes but make them a little bit healthier. And what better way than to make sourdough cinnamon rolls? So at least if you're going to be indulging, make them a little bit healthier. That's the aim for when I'm feeding my family and myself. I like to take basic recipes and make them as healthy as possible without compromising on flavors. This recipe is fairly simple. It just requires time, as most sourdough recipes require time. So step one is to start by measuring out your flour and your milk, and that's because we're gonna use a little bit of the milk and a little bit of the flour to mix it in a saucepan and make almost like a roux, but it's called a tangzhong. It's something that I recently discovered. It really helps the dough stay nice and soft and chewy for a longer time, so without needing to add any special additives that you wouldn't have necessarily at home that you would maybe find in a baked good, like a commercial baked good that's at the supermarket or like in another bakery. So this kind of mimics that, and it helps the dough stay moist for longer. So the first step is we're gonna measure 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and then we're gonna measure out 1 cup of milk. The most precise way is to kind of scoop it into your measuring cup, and that way you're not condensing the flour and adding too much. Alternatively, you could weigh it. I will add the measurements for the grams in the description down below and in the blog post. So we're gonna need 4 cups of all-purpose flour that I'm adding to the bowl. And the reason I'm starting by measuring this out is because we're gonna take a little bit of the flour and a little bit of the milk and heat it in a saucepan until we have that roux that we're looking for. And then I'm measuring out 1 cup of milk. I have a full fat milk here, so just gonna make sure that's 1 cup. Okay, and then in a small saucepan, we're taking a couple of tablespoons of the flour that we've already measured out, and then we're adding 5 tablespoons of the milk. We're then gonna take this over a medium to low heat and combine it until it starts to form like a thicker paste. As it heats up, it will start thickening up. So you can see as it's heating up how thick it's gone compared to how it was before. That's about the consistency you want it. So it's like a thick roux. And to this, I'm going to add the remainder of my milk just to heat up the milk a little bit. The next step is to add this milk mixture and the roux that we made into another bowl that you're gonna be mixing all your ingredients with. So the choice is up to you. You can do this by hand. I just prefer to have it done in a stand mixer. That way I can leave it for like 8 to 10 minutes. It could do its thing and I continue like cleaning up or doing something else. What I'm gonna do is just add this to my stand mixer, let the milk cool down a little bit while I prepare the rest of my ingredients. And then to the same saucepan that we heated up our milk, I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of coconut oil, and I'm gonna heat that up as well. In like less than 30 seconds, my coconut oil is melted. And then I'm adding the melted coconut oil with the milk that I have in my stand mixer. That I'm adding another 1/4 cup of water. To that, I'm measuring a 1/4 cup of honey. That will add a lot of sweetness and a yummy flavor to our dough. To that, I'm adding a teaspoon of salt. I have a fine sea salt that I added, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. The next thing I'm adding is 2 large eggs. Ideally they're room temperature, and if you just take them out of the fridge, you can just pop them into a bowl with warm water or hot water for a few minutes and they'll come right to room temperature. I'm gonna give everything a nice stir with my whisk. And then to that, I'm adding a really active sourdough starter, and I fed this a few hours ago, and so it's nice and bubbly right now. And then I'm giving everything a nice stir before adding in our flour. I'm adding the 4 cups of flour that we measured earlier, less the 2 tablespoons that we had taken out. I'm gonna put it back onto my stand mixer and attach the dough hook. And like I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to mix this part by hand, go ahead, go for it. It's gonna take about 8 to 10 minutes of mixing by hand just to get all the ingredients mixed up and the dough, like the flour, really nicely hydrated. And so because I rather be able to do something else, I'm gonna put this on my stand mixer with the dough hook and let this on speed, on like the second speed. On the second setting, speed setting, I'm not sure how you would say it. I'm gonna have it on there for about 8 to 10 minutes. This is after about 5 minutes. Don't be scared to go in there with a spatula and scrape the sides just to make sure that all the dough is getting mixed in properly. This is what the dough looks like after 9 minutes of stirring, but so anywhere from 8 to 10, you just want it to be nice and elasticy and everything to be nicely combined. We're gonna let this rest for 30 minutes and we're gonna come back to it and do our first stretch and fold. It's been 30 minutes since the dough has been resting, and so we're gonna perform the first stretch and fold. So we're gonna do that 4 times. So we're just gonna grab one end of the dough, stretch it over, turn it clockwise, stretch it over again, and do this 4 times until you've done all the corners. You then want to take a bowl that you've lightly oiled. I've put a little bit of olive oil and I spread it around, and so you're gonna transfer your dough into the oiled bowl and cover it and put it to the sides somewhere warm and put a timer on for 1 hour. And after the 1 hour, we're gonna stretch and fold it once again. We're gonna do a total of 4 stretch and folds with an hour rest in between. So was our first stretch and fold. We're gonna let it rest for 1 hour, stretch it once again, and then we're gonna repeat that another 3 times. It's now been 1 hour. So I'm gonna perform the second stretch and fold. And sometimes you might need to just hold it down to be able to stretch and fold it. So look how smooth that's getting. We're gonna cover this up and let it rest for another hour. I'm now performing the last stretch and fold, just like that. I'm gonna cover this and put it in the fridge to rise overnight. Ideally, you're gonna leave this in the fridge overnight so the flavors really get a chance to develop. If you don't have time, if you wanna make it the same day and you're starting early in the morning, then you can put this in the fridge for at least 10 to 12 hours. But I think the timing works in the way where you would have to do it overnight unless you're starting really early in the morning. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge overnight. Thankfully, I have a dough that I prepared yesterday and it has risen overnight. And I've let it come to room temperature now for about 3 hours. And it's risen really nicely. It's nice and full. And the way you know that it's ready to go, that it's fully proofed, is when you press in it, it doesn't bounce back. It leaves an indent, so then you know it's ready. Then I'm gonna take my all-purpose flour and dust my counter. And then I'm gonna plop this onto the counter. Then the next thing you wanna do is roll this out into a rectangle. The measurement's gonna be about 10 to 17. It's gonna be about a 1/4 inch thick, so it's not gonna be exact, just so you have an idea, just a large enough rectangle where you can divide it into 12 equal strips. And then you can just flip it around as needed, so you can roll it out pretty evenly. Try to make it as square as possible, so like even the edges, try to make those as straight as possible. Add a little bit more flour. Otherwise it does tend to get pretty sticky. Now that we have our dough rolled up, we have some really soft butter. I've left this out all day. It's nice and soft, and we're gonna go and spread this all across the dough. So I have 1/2 cup of butter right here. Make sure it's really soft so you're able to spread it really easily. Don't melt it because then it'll just get absorbed by the dough, but make sure it's nice and soft. Make sure you cover as much of the surface as possible, going right to the edges. You can kind of take from the parts that have a little bit of a thicker layer of butter and take it from there and spread it to the other areas. There you go, that looks pretty good. I have my butter edge to edge, and I have my brown sugar mixed with cinnamon right here. I have 1 cup of sugar with 3 tablespoons of Ceylon cinnamon. I like Ceylon cinnamon because it's got some additional health benefits, and they say if you're gonna buy cinnamon, that's the one to use. It's an organic Ceylon cinnamon from Sri Lanka. We love cinnamon in our family, and so I've added 3 tablespoons, but if you want a more mild flavor, feel free to just add just a couple of tablespoons. So I'm gonna spread this as well, and I know this might seem like a lot for the filling, but don't be scared to use it all because that's what's gonna add to the gooiness of the cinnamon rolls once they're done and they're baked. So the brown sugar is gonna mix in with the butter and make just the gooey center that is really distinctive of a good cinnamon roll that you would enjoy eating. So I'm just gonna spread it around, and then I'm gonna go ahead and even it out with my hand. I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure it's even. There's no blank spaces. And then you have 2 choices. You can choose to do the traditional way and roll these up as one big log and then slice everything, either with a knife or with like a string. Or one way I really enjoy doing too, something different, is kind of cutting them in strips before rolling them up with a pizza cutter. So we're looking to do 12 pieces. So I'm just gonna cut this down the middle like that. I'm gonna cut each section into 6. It comes up to around almost 2 inches per strip. So, this is just short of 12 inches, so it'll probably be like 1 3/4 inches. So I'm just gonna one cut right here, and then the other cut right here, and then I can cut this into half again. So this right here, this right here, and this right here. So they're a little uneven. This side is a little bit, these slices are a little bit bigger than the other ones, but it's okay. We're going for a homemade style. So we're just gonna roll these as tightly as possible. And then we'll leave it like that. And then we just want to pinch the edge here so it doesn't open up. I have a baking pan that I've coated with some butter all around, and I'm gonna put these in here. So it's up to you if you wanna use a square pan or a round pan like this, and then just continue rolling. I made a mistake and I thought this would be a good size pan, but it's a little too large. I'm gonna take a square baking pan and put them in there. This is what our cinnamon rolls look like. I added the extra sugar that had fallen off on the counter. I added it on top of the cinnamon rolls and around, because that's just gonna melt and become even more gooey around the cinnamon rolls. We have a few options at this point. We can either let these rise for another couple hours and then we're gonna put them into the oven and bake and enjoy them later on today, or we can pop them into the fridge and bake them tomorrow if we want them for breakfast. And then the other option is to cover them with saran wrap and some foil, make sure it's nicely sealed, and pop them into the freezer, and they will keep for a really long time. And whenever you want to have some fresh cinnamon rolls, you can just take these out, thaw them at room temperature, let them rise for another couple hours, and then pop them into the oven. It's been a couple hours and these guys have had a chance to puff up and rise a little bit. They've had a chance to rest. They're ready to go in the oven. I've been preheating my oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I'm gonna pop these in for about 25 to 30 minutes. Keep an eye on them. You don't wanna over bake them. You want the center to still be gooey and soft. You don't want them to be dry. So just keep an eye on them starting at the 25-minute mark. You'll see that the tops will start to brown and like become almost bread-like, but you'll still be able to notice the center still being soft. Now that our cinnamon rolls are in the oven, we can go ahead and make the icing that's gonna go on top of it. It's super simple. We're gonna need a little bit of cream cheese, a little bit of vanilla extract, some maple syrup to sweeten it, and some butter. You can go about this a few different ways. You can either use a hand mixer or put it in the blender and mix the softened cream cheese with the butter and the vanilla and the maple syrup. Or you could do what I'm gonna do now. Just because I'm lazy to pull out the mixer again, I'm going to put it over a saucepan with a really low heat and just enough to soften everything up, and I'm gonna use a whisk. So to the saucepan, I'm adding a quarter cup of butter. This is a little bit more, but it's okay, it's pretty forgiving. It's just the icing. We're going to add half a block of cream cheese, and then we're also adding a teaspoon of vanilla extract and a quarter cup of maple syrup. You could make this sweeter and add some more maple syrup, but just because we have so much sugar on the filling of the cinnamon rolls, I feel like it's not needed, but you might prefer to have a sweeter frosting, so that's completely up to you. This is what the frosting looks like once everything's melted and incorporated. It's got a bit of a yellow tinge from the vanilla extract and the maple syrup. I can't wait to dig in, but first we're gonna put the icing on top. So I like to put it while it's still warm, and the icing melts and just goes everywhere. And then you have delicious cream cheesy, maple syrupy goodness all over your cinnamon buns. So good. Wow. That's incredible. These will definitely not disappoint when you make them. There you have it, guys. That's how I make my sourdough cinnamon rolls. They are so fluffy, and they're like it's like you're biting into a cloud with just like the perfect amount of sweetness, the perfect amount of cinnamon, and then the maple syrup on top with the cream cheese. It just melts together, all the flavors come together, and they're just incredible. I'm so excited for you guys to try these. They're absolutely phenomenal. I love that you can make them ahead of time and then have them for breakfast. When you want cinnamon rolls, you can just simply thaw them out, take them out of the freezer, thaw them, and have fresh cinnamon rolls. I love that they're a little bit healthier for you as well. They're a little bit more gut friendly. I really hope you guys give this recipe a try. If you like this recipe, you might also enjoy the recipe I posted last week, which is how I make my sourdough pizzas. If you're looking for something quick again to make ahead and don't want to be grabbing frozen pizzas from the grocery store every time, that's a great option for you as well. And so I'll leave that video linked for you in the next video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button. I post a new video every week on homemaking tips, cleaning motivation, and delicious recipes the whole family will love. I'll see you guys next time.